Hello and welcome to the Sexient Being Sessions. I am Alix Pruett, a certified sex, love, and relationship coach and reality guide. I work with men, women, and couples plus who want to transform their old patterns, pain, and beliefs so they can create thriving relationships that are deeply connected, playful, and fulfilling within themselves and with others. Today, I'm joined by the amazing Rachelrose. Do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself?
Yes, thank you. I am Rachelrose. I am a psychologist and life coach, and I specialize in PTSD and trauma recovery and reclaiming of a sense of self and self love. And I help women transition from traumatic experiences into transformative experiences.
Beautiful. So today our topic is dating from pleasure, which is one of the areas I thoroughly enjoy just because it's something that people can kind of really dread in the
Mhm.
world of dating and trying to find a relationship, find connections with other people.
Mhm.
But it can also be such an enjoyable and exciting phase to be in.
Yes.
I don't know. What are your thoughts around the topic? Just like
Well,
initials, right?
yeah. So for me, dating from pleasure takes a lot more chutzpah, or lack of a better word I can think of, than one might actually realize. I did a content piece a few months ago that was around why green flags are scary after trauma,
Hmm.
and the same goes for dating and pleasure. Is a lot of people don't, at least unconsciously, believe that they deserve happiness. So being able to fall into that seat and date in a pleasure space can actually be very difficult for some people.
Yes, and I completely agree, especially if you've been going through stints of like toxic or abusive relationships or
Mm-hmm.
ones that like really just are not fulfilling for
Yeah.
your system. Like
Mm-hmm.
you have adapted this model for yourself
Mm-hmm.
of love looking a certain way. And it is very likely that love connections and relationships have many plethoras of ways of looking,
Mm-hmm.
right? But the
Yeah.
ones that you've adapted your system to recognize as, oh, I have a relationship. I'm going to fix my internet real. There we go.
Oh,
Um, you there
no
still?
problem. I'm here.
Um, but you end up adapting your system on this very unconscious level to recognize those things that would probably be good red flags for you
Mm-hmm.
into, oh, this is what desire feels like. This is what attraction feels like. And
Mm-hmm.
you can end up finding that you keep repeating, calling in these very toxic, abusive, unfulfilling, even lonely
Mm-hmm.
relationships. And so
Yeah.
that's where, to me, dating from pleasure is such a beautiful and profound approach because to me, that space is you're not approaching dating with any expectation. You may have
Yeah.
a bigger end goal of like, yes, I would love to find my soulmate partner. I would love to find my life partner,
Mm-hmm.
right? But
Yes.
you're not putting that expectation on needing to fall on any single person you're dating. You're
Mm-hmm.
initially going to show up as your soulmate, your ideal life partner first,
Yes.
and for
Yeah.
yourself. And it helps remove so much pressure from the situation. It's a little bit
Yeah.
ridiculous. And when you start removing that pressure time and time again, like the things just flow in and flow in very quickly in my experience.
Usually, once you're in that space and seated in that pleasure, like manifestation is your best friend.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's very interesting how that works because it can end up feeling like such a struggle or the
Hmm.
things that are healthy can
Hmm.
feel really uncomfortable.
Yes.
And like
And
even, oh, go ahead.
yeah. Oh, I was just going to say, you were mentioning about red flags and how we kind of lean more towards that. And like what you just said about things that are healthy feeling uncomfortable is when, you're feeling unsafe and experiences in their past have made you feel and be unsafe. Green flags terrify you and make you uncomfortable,
Yeah.
and you avoid them, and so you're almost unable to get to a place of comfort within this dating from pleasure seat.
Hmm.
So the, like, oh, this person gives me butterflies, oh, I gotta run because that makes me feel anxious.
Well,
And
yeah, and
anxious
it's
and
not,
excited feel very similar.
yeah, and that's where being able to communicate with your body, right?
Mm-hmm.
Understand what your body is actually signaling
Yes.
is so valuable, especially because there are so many things to me that show up around the world of dating, around the world of sexual connection and intimacy
Mm-hmm.
that have been very normalized in our society as like, oh, this should feel like attention, right?
Yeah.
Especially in the female body. And I have
Oh
no
yeah.
doubt that it applies to the male body as well. Being able to be relaxed
Mm-hmm.
in a state of sexual play with a partner, like
Mm-hmm.
that creates like immense orgasmic waves. Like you're not relying on just friction to
Yes.
create pleasure through discomfort
Oh yeah,
and
no,
then
totally.
calling it pleasure. You're actually able to relax and be in that space and
Mm-hmm.
be in the flow, kind of like getting a good massage.
Yes.
Like it's
Like you.
relaxing, it's nourishing.
Yes, and a lot of that comes as well from the trust and safety that you feel from the masseuse or your
Yes.
partner. So
Yeah.
like that's the funnest part of dating. The best part, in my opinion, is the first couple of months. Let's go 6 months before you're really established with each other. You have that fun play where you get to, speak your mind and set those boundaries. And in the 6 month realm, if you're feeling like you could say the wrong thing and they'll disappear, that release of that sexual intimacy that you were just speaking about, it won't it won't open the door
Hmm.
because you don't have that trust within your partner. So you haven't been able to feel that like universe filled orgasmic experience.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so
And
it's
that's,
really important to take the time in the beginning of relationships to get to know each other, but also assert your boundaries and know that this is the beginning stages. If you get to know them and you don't like something you're getting to know, it's okay to walk away because you'll find someone else. And I think a
yeah.
lot of us fall into this seat of, well, I'm never going to find anyone else, so I might as well just suck it up because no one's ever going to love me and I have to convince this person to do it. And that's just not true.
Well,
Especially as
and
women, we could walk in anywhere and we'll turn heads.
well, one of the like ideas I like in that, right? And that comes
Mm-hmm.
back to this space of sorry, it's fluttering in and out for the pod.
Oh, okay.
There we go.
I can still hear you.
Um, so, oh no, it's my thoughts are kind of like bouncing
Oh,
around and fluttering, not the call connection. Um,
well, I feel you there.
it's it's this idea that like let's say you're noticing a relationship, whether it's in the first like couple dates or 6 months down the road or even
Mm-hmm.
10 years down the road,
Oh, yeah, 100%.
right?
Yeah.
That it's not in alignment anymore, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And by alignment, that's like you're you're not in a space where you can make the room, find the room to accept and fully like love your partner as they are,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
That you're not willing to work with them
Yes.
in the
And a lot.
relationship.
Mm-hmm.
But that it's just it's noticing it's just not a good alignment. It doesn't mean you can't find somebody else, that the other person, or like if you do find somebody else, they're going to be worse,
Oh
or
yeah, yeah.
that like that's just never going to happen. It means there's probably somebody out there who is better suited for you. And why are you keeping yourself from potentially finding that connection? Why are you keeping your partner who you're no longer wanting a relationship with or willing to work with in a relationship?
Hmm.
Why are you keeping them from finding their person
Yes.
as
And
well?
to touch on, like, if you're in a 10-year relationship and this is happening, we are forever evolving people. Like, let's say you started dating when you're 15. Our bodies are not going to be the same body as a 15-year-old 10 years later. Your
Hmm.
25-year-old body is not the same. So neither are you as an individual in your psyche, in your mind. And so it could very well be that the person that you're with, after a 10-year period, it doesn't mean you have to break up with them, for lack of better terminology. It
Hmm.
could be that you need to start dating that person from a sense of pleasure again, because
Yeah.
they are no longer that 15-year-old girl or boy that you started dating originally. Now they're 25-year-old man or woman. And you have to start dating and get to know who that person is again. And maybe you'll be able to
Yes.
find that spark again. So it's not always about releasing and letting go from the partner that you're with just because there's some bumps. It is like you said, working and evolving and pushing through in the change.
Well, and I think that's one of the bigger things that can kind of kill relationships. It's getting into this space of feeling like right? You
Mm-hmm.
lose your curiosity and that
Mm-hmm.
childlike playfulness in
Mm-hmm.
getting to understand who another person is, getting to understand who you are. Because you
Yeah.
are not, like, even if it's the next day, you are not the exact same person you
Mm-hmm.
were the day
Mm-hmm.
before.
Mm-hmm.
So the more you build on being playful, being curious, getting out of the assumption that I know,
Mm-hmm.
right? The easier it is to facilitate bringing that spark back,
Yeah.
especially in longer term relationships. But
Yeah.
even in the initial phases of dating, like we can get stuck in the narratives of, oh, like all women just want a guy who's going to support them financially, right?
Yeah.
There's social
Yeah.
narratives that come into play, and then we project that on our partner, even if that has nothing to do with them,
Yeah.
right? Besides the fact that they just happen to be a woman.
Yeah. And it honestly, could very well be, I used to like buffalo chicken wings and now I like pad thai, and you
Yeah.
haven't communicated that to your partner, and they're still buying you chicken wings, but you haven't told them that
Hmm.
you prefer pad thai now because your
Oh
taste
yeah.
buds has changed or evolved. And it could be that simple, and it just hasn't, you haven't quite gotten there within yourself to realize in totality that you no longer like buffalo chicken wings, you prefer pad thai. And
Hmm.
so that is back to what you were saying about, is understanding your body and knowing what's going on with you and what is changing and evolving for you, so that you're able to communicate that in a positive and healthy way so that you can have that pleasure space to sit in with your partner.
Well, and I want to bring it back even to the initial phases of
Mm-hmm.
dating, right? Like,
Oh, totally.
I don't know, when I was dating, like, yes, coffee dates can be fun, right? Going out to dinner can be fun. Going out to a
Mm-hmm.
movie can be fun.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but to me, your movie sitting there watching TV, like, you're not actually creating a whole lot of space for you guys to get to know one another,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
Unless you're actually creating a conversation around the movie afterwards and using that as an
Yeah.
opportunity to connect.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but like I got bored with coffee dates and going out to restaurants. And so what I felt inspired to, because I invited plenty of guys on dates as well, is I went for dates that were experiences, right?
Oh,
And
I
I
love that.
considered a coffee date an experience as well, but I wanted to explore other things.
Hmm.
So, like going to the Japanese gardens or going on a hike somewhere, going to a concert
Hmm.
in Portland to see some, I think it was like a No Doubt. It's not a cover band because they actually like dressed up as them, but
That sounds
it
fantastic.
it was all sorts of interesting experiences that I was like, ooh, what's this thing that I was getting curious about?
Hmm.
And in that space, it meant that like if the person didn't show up for the date, I was still okay. I would still take myself
To that
on the
experience.
date because
Yes.
like yes, it's awesome to have like an adventure buddy,
Yeah.
but getting into the mentality that like you can go it alone, you can adventure alone, you can
Hmm.
enjoy whatever that experience is regardless of anyone else.
Hmm.
That's huge.
Yes. I want to branch on that as well. Like, our
Mhm.
topic today is dating from pleasure, and that does not necessarily mean it has to be with another person. I am
Yeah.
a huge advocate, and something that I strongly urge all of my clients to do is at least once a month to take themselves on a date. I don't care if you have a partner or kids, I don't care. Take yourself out solely alone and enjoy and learn again if you have forgotten. Sometimes you have, sometimes you haven't. It doesn't really matter. To enjoy your solitude
Mhm.
and the experiences like going to a concert, or if you like going to a coffee date, or
Mhm.
going to a movie by yourself. It doesn't really matter what you're doing, but do it alone intentionally. And then you'll find when you're with another person, there's different values, and you can bring that you're like, oh, okay, so I can do things outside of these people. And so dating becomes a little bit more pleasurable. You would more appreciate their presence, but you don't, it's not an obsession or a need to have them around. You just desire them. And it's
Mhm.
nice.
Yeah.
And then you also acknowledge that sometimes you want to do it by yourself too.
Yeah. No, and being willing to take alone space and time for yourself to connect with the things that bring you joy and pleasure is huge. And that doesn't
Mm-hmm.
matter if it's going out to an event, going out to the ocean, the mountains, whatever it is. It doesn't matter if you're deciding to stay home and like take a bath or do stretches, like
Yes,
or
beautiful.
dance
Mm-hmm.
in your living room or on your porch.
A
It
hundred
is
percent.
about dropping into pleasure with yourself, knowing that it doesn't have to come from anything outside of you.
Mm-hmm.
Because the more you're able to fulfill that, the easier it is to enjoy that in the spaces outside of you. And then you're not putting this like need and heavy weight on that having to be fulfilled by someone, something
Another, yeah.
else.
And you're also not putting that weight on that person to, like, they could
Yes.
potentially feel that it's their responsibility, and it could, they could feel it's too much responsibility, that you always have to be in contact with them, you can't go out of the house without them or something like that.
Hmm.
That could potentially be not a place that brings them pleasure. And a
Yeah.
lot of dating from pleasure is not just what you need, it's also acknowledging what the other person needs as well.
Hmm.
Because I like fried chicken, it doesn't mean my boyfriend does.
Yeah.
And so sometimes we're going to go out to dinner for the things that he wants to eat. I should have used a different example because I think he loves fried chicken more than I do, but that's not the point.
Well, no, and that even that need for space. Like if you're dating someone, right? And let's say it's my more recent experience is that like my partner was very into like check in all throughout the day. It would be text messages, it would be phone calls, it would be video chats.
Mm-hmm.
And when we first got together, I remember like this little voice coming up in the back of my head and being like, this is not sustainable. Like when you
Mm.
have other things coming in, like, you cannot keep this up, like, you're gonna get burnt out pretty
Yeah.
much. And
By a person too. Yeah.
yeah, and it came down to, like, yes, I was enjoying that initial rush of all the spaces of connection, this person desiring, having that amount of connection with me, but I also knew it wasn't sustainable. And so I started noticing that I was feeling agitated,
Mm.
right? And I was
Mm-hmm.
like, okay, well, why am I feeling agitated? And it was, I would get a video message. And if I didn't answer the video message, I would get a phone call immediately after. And then I would get a text message immediately
Mm.
after. And so I had to get really clear on, okay, like, what feels good for the amount of communication that I want to have with a partner or I need to have with a partner? Like, what can
Mm-hmm.
I actually commit to? And getting curious on what my partner's need was in that as well. Because I
Yeah.
realized, oh, I can fully function in relationships and only be in contact like once or twice a day, maybe even like 2 or 3 days out of the week, not even having to be every day. Like, I'm fine with doing things on my own. I actually
Mm-hmm.
thrive really well, like not feeling like I have to check in with somebody constantly. And I checked in with him and he's like, oh, like I need at least like 5 check-ins a day and this many phone calls. And I was like, whoa,
Yeah.
whoa, whoa. Like, and I got to notice that resistance in my own system, that this feels like too much. Not that he's too much, not
Mm-hmm.
that his need is too much, but
No,
it's
not at
too much
all.
for me to commit myself to.
Yeah. And I want to emphasize, guys, I'm the opposite. I need lots of check-ins, or I desire lots of check-ins. I don't need it, but I would prefer it. But I also don't want it to be, like I can't get anything done for work, or, I'm trying to eat a meal in peace or something like that. But having a good morning message every day for me is a big thing for me. But it's not for everybody. So paying attention in that early stages of dating, like you're saying, pay attention to what's coming up for you. Is that person's desire for what they want in a relationship, which will be a forever thing. Um, and I always said the best advice I ever got from this married couple, they were married 70 years, was if you're not willing to do it forever, don't do it once. So if you're not willing to take their shoes off every time they get home from work, don't do it once. So if that's just not something that you feel you could sustainably do, it's okay. You will find someone who matches your style, and it's just not that person.
Well, and even if you can try something out and let the person know that like you don't know if this is going to be your thing, but you're willing to try it
Oh, I love
and
that.
see
Yes,
how it works, right?
experimentation. Yeah,
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 because that's
yeah.
the space of getting comfortable, feeling uncomfortable, and you're exploring and you're playing with new dynamics
Mm-hmm.
with whether it's a date or whether it's a longer term partner, but
Mm-hmm.
you're willing to explore and play. And maybe you
And
find that you love taking your partner's shoes off for them every night when they
yeah.
get home, right? That that
Mm-hmm.
you like providing that act of service and it's something your partner enjoys receiving. Cool, like you guys found something that's pleasurable for both of you.
Mm-hmm.
But if it's something you really don't enjoy, that's okay too.
And I love that you brought up experimentation, because that is something that I found in my current relationship that didn't exist in other ones. I was a hard pass on certain um, sexual acts and certain, dynamics and just regular relationship dynamics outside of the bedroom. Um, but he had voiced that those were things that he desired. And I was like, well, okay, let me see how I fare trying them out. And because there was that healthy communication, I found that certain things that I absolutely despised in past relationships, I was excited to do in this relationship. And I probably wouldn't have figured that out if I hadn't had that open communication with my partner and the willingness to explore and test it.
Yeah.
And so I got to find that seat of pleasure. And now I found that, like pleasure space in not just my relationship dynamic in the dating world, but also in the bedroom as well.
So, hello, Canvas. Did you have something you wanted to add or ask?
Please feel free to speak up with any questions that you might have. And if you don't feel like talking, feel free to also type it up in the chat below and we'll still answer your question as well.
Yes. Nope, looks like he dropped out, and that's all right.
No problem at all.
Yeah, this idea of dating from pleasure, it's really about connecting with what brings you pleasure. Your partners are going to have their own things
Mm-hmm.
that bring them pleasure, and it's getting out of the discomfort that like you have to make yourself uncomfortable in ways you don't find pleasurable to fulfill
Mm-hmm.
that, right? That's you're letting go of this idea that you have to abandon yourself because somebody else's needs matter more. Like, granted, are there significant life events that could happen, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
you're dating somebody and they get in a really severe accident and they need support. Like they now can't walk for some amount of time, right? But in that, you still get to decide what you can reasonably provide.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean you have to become their full-time caretaker. Would they appreciate that? Possibly, maybe not. Who knows, right? But it's also very likely that like they could find other avenues to get that fulfilled.
Mm-hmm.
I think one of my favorite tools for dating from pleasure is the idea of dating yourself first. And I know
Yes.
we already touched on this. And that's if you're like actively in the dating game, you're actively on um, like Tinder or Bumble or whatever other dating sites are there, or you're meeting people out in public spaces to go on dates with them and getting invited on dates,
Mm-hmm.
then yeah, it's a space of removing expectations, finding what you find enjoyable. Like, even if you're talking with somebody and like when you're getting off of a call with them or a text conversation, like you kind of feel exhausted, that's probably a good signal for your body that like this may not be the appropriate connection for your life. And it's a
Yeah.
great
I mean,
opportunity to take a look at
yes.
what's
Yes.
feeling so exhausting for you.
Yes. I also want to emphasize if you're someone with past of trauma or PTSD, um, when you start dating someone who makes you feel safe and you're able to let go of that survival mentality that you've been in for so many years, you could also feel exhausted
Mhm.
when you're with that person. And it's not because it's not necessarily counteracting what Alix was saying either. It's just another possibility that could happen. Um, it could just be that you're finally able to relax and you're able to surrender yourself to their protection in that moment so that you're not in survival mode.
Well, and
And
I
that
would,
is when you're in survival mode for so long, it is exhausting to come out of it.
and this may not be for everyone. I would say in my experience, because I've totally had the like new dating person who I'm building a relationship with and I start feeling that safety, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where we then have like days together where we like wake up in the morning like and then decide to literally just stay in bed together all day.
Yes, yeah.
And it's in and out of sleep and like little bits of chatting, cuddling, sex, whatever it may be. But
Mm-hmm.
to me, that feels different than the other exhaustion. Like there's
Oh,
still
I
like
tend to
that
agree. Yeah.
sleepy drowsiness there, but like
Hmm.
I keep having this flash. There was one guy in particular a handful of years ago where we were chatting mainly over text, I think.
Hmm.
Um, but I found it interesting because every time that we would get done like texting throughout the day, which he was a very consistent texter, um, I'd feel drained. And I wasn't noticing it initially. Eventually, we went on a date, and like I wasn't feeling super attracted to him in our date. Like he would have been a great friend, but
Hmm.
I wasn't feeling the same level of attraction to him that he was feeling towards me. And I let him know that like I just really wasn't that interested in going on another date because that's where I was at.
Yeah.
And he got very upset. And granted, I continued to engage in text conversations with him for a while because I didn't want to hurt this person. And he was taking it quite personally that I just
Hmm.
wasn't interested and went into like telling me I was leading him on and all these other things. And I realized at that point, I was like, oh, yeah, like 5, 10 minutes of this text conversation, I feel drained and wiped
Yes.
completely. And I was just like, this is going back into some old patterns for me with this
Hmm.
person. Like, I'm taking ownership of just where I feel I am at, right? Not placing blame on another person, not saying it has anything to do with them because it didn't. And in that, he took it very personally and then went into like telling me that I was doing all these things to him. And that's where I just cut things off. And I was like, nope, no more. But in that, it was me getting to notice where I was potentially falling back into old patterns
Hmm.
and weak boundaries for myself. So so knowing that your boundaries are okay, knowing that whatever you're feeling, like if you
Yeah.
start feeling really exhausted in it, certain interactions with a person, like get curious about what's coming up for you.
Hmm.
Like
And
it doesn't mean that what
finding,
they
yeah.
want. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
Sorry, I was just going to say, and finding like what we were both saying, like we were talking about two different types of exhaustion that both
Hmm.
could come up, and making sure you're not confusing one for the other.
Yeah, yeah.
But sorry to interrupt you.
Oh no, it's all right. Yeah, it's just to me, it's noticing when those things are misalignments, like we
Hmm.
were saying earlier, and that being okay. Like not everybody's going to be your match.
Hmm.
Like your match when you find them is a special match because they are them and you are you and you come together, and when you come together it's in really beautiful, supportive and nourishing ways to the both of you. It's in very pleasurable ways to the both of you. And if it's
Hmm.
not, you two can have the conversations to find what that balance is for the both of you, not
Hmm.
either one of you having to give yourself up just to make the
Yeah.
other person happy.
Or even give up a part of you. None of that
Hmm.
happens. Hmm.
Yeah. One of the, I would say the core foundation to any of this is that space of dating yourself. It's coming into self love and ownership
Hmm.
of your self love.
Yes. And through that self love, you start to realize that dating is not about sacrifice or even self sacrifice, as is commonly believed in some cases. It's about service. What you're willing to do in service to your partner and what you're not. And it's not, you're not sacrificing or compromising any of your own integrity to stay within that relationship. You're choosing to take their shoes off every time they come home. or you're choosing to tell them that's just not something I could sustainably do, and finding something else that you can do in service to them that you
Mm-hmm.
can sustainably do.
Yeah. Well, and that's one of my favorite like self practices to help gain clarity and really understand what it is you're wanting from a dating relationship. It's called the list, and you're actually creating
Oh
two
yeah.
lists.
Mm-hmm.
One is the partner list, and the other one is the relationship list.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to focus just on the partner list, but you do the same thing for concept on the relationship list. You draw
Mm-hmm.
out two columns for it, and the first column you write needs. So these are the needs you have in a partner that you would be getting into a relationship with. The other
Mm-hmm.
one is the cherries on top. So these are any bonuses that you could possibly receive in a dating partner,
Mm-hmm.
and like get shallow about it because these are
Oh yeah.
bonuses, right? Like be
Like,
like
say I want him
I
to go down on me for 20 hours.
yeah, like add those add those things in, like that that you want them to like worship your pussy or your cock, right? Whatever that looks like for you, that you want them to be 6'3"
Yes.
or a millionaire or drive a
Yeah.
Ferrari. Like to me, those are more of the
I do seem to
surface
have some
level
connection
things.
issues, so let me know if I'm cutting out.
Okay, but
Can you hear
you
me?
can yeah,
Okay, just checking.
yeah, you can get shallow with it. Like just notice all the things that are there, but anything
Mm-hmm.
that like if the things under needs don't exist, right? Like if you need a partner who is compassionate, who is willing to communicate, right? Who is willing to pay half the bills,
Yeah.
whatever that is, you put those under the needs. And
And I
if
want to
a
emphasize
person,
that. Oh, sorry, I'm cutting out. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you there. I
oh
want to
yeah,
emphasize that, like compassion in a relationship is not the bonus side. That is a pretty basic need in a relationship.
well, I'd say it depends on the person. Like if
Can't
they
hear
don't,
you. Hello?
yeah, I'm here.
I can hear bits and pieces. I apologize for my internet connection, everyone.
You keep cutting in and out.
Yeah, I'm so sorry, guys. Oh, I'm not connected to Wi-Fi anymore. That'd be why.
Ah,
All right. I'll be back in short minutes. I
okay.
apologize.
So, and Rachel
All
Rose was
right.
saying,
Can
oh,
can you hear me now?
yeah.
Okay. I apologize, everybody.
And that's you were saying that the somebody being compassionate is a core need for you, and that's accurate for you, right? And it
Hmm.
can be accurate for a lot of people. Having a partner who's compassionate in different ways may not be something they need or necessarily even care about directly in a relationship. But know that whatever your needs are valid and
Hmm.
okay.
Hmm.
Like even if it's that your partner is like completely ripped
Oh
muscularly,
yeah.
right? Like
Uh,
that can be a need for you, and that is all right. There is no judgment, there is no shame in whatever these lists look like for you.
and you don't
And
need to be ripped to put that in your categories either.
no,
Like it
no,
just
not at
because
all.
you desire something doesn't mean you have to be that too.
Yeah.
That is not how it works.
So you're going to do this, you're going to do a needs list, and you're going to do a cherry on top list for the partner. And then
Hmm.
you're going to do the same thing for the relationship that you're wanting.
Hmm.
What does that look like? Is that monogamous or polyamorous? right? How many times would you guys have sex a week if you're sexually active with this person?
Mhm.
Um, that's it can go over so many different areas. So really give it some thought. What sort of things what do finances look like in this
Mhm.
relationship? Do they get
Yeah.
you gifts? How do they show you, or how does this relationship show you love? How does this relationship show you that it's working and sustainable? And then again, the cherries on top. And then what you're going to do is like now you have a lot of clarity around what you're needing. And if somebody doesn't meet these needs, that's okay. It's much easier to not take it personally and to say, hey, like, this relationship isn't actually a great match for me because these are the things I'm needing,
Mhm.
right? These other things are just a bonus.
Yes. And I highly suggest you get into the nitty gritty, intricate detail, like minute detail, like not just how many times a week you want sex, but like what positions you want, like where you want to be bit, where you want to be kissed, how you wanted to play with your fingers. There's no level of depth that's too far in this list.
Well, and so one of the other things I was going to mention the discovering your own like sexual pleasure in a
Mm-hmm.
moment. Um, but the last piece with this is so like let's say you want somebody who will take you on a date once a week, right?
I love
If
that.
there's
Yeah.
certain if there are certain sorts of behaviors, there's certain ways you're wanting to be treated, right?
Mm-hmm.
Go over this list and see where you can start showing up for yourself in those areas.
Yeah.
That you can start bringing that to yourself. And then one, it makes it a lot easier to acknowledge when somebody else is giving it to you. Again, it takes the pressure off this person needing to give it to you because you know how to fulfill that and that you can get it fulfilled
Mm-hmm.
regardless of this person or not. So it helps remove pressure, but
Mm-hmm.
it it helps create safety and trust within your own system. And that can
Mm-hmm.
be really key in being able to show up for yourself in relationships, to not losing yourself in a relationship because you have that safety and trust in
Yeah.
you first and foremost.
Mm-hmm.
Like I remember when I was working with my trauma coach last year, at one point it was when I was very first like in my relationship with my partner, I had said something about not knowing if I could trust him yet, but like wanting to be able to trust him. And her response was along the lines of, you may never be able to fully trust anyone else, but coming to the foundation of trusting yourself is what's of the most like key importance, that you can trust the choices you make for you.
Yes. Definitely. Yeah. And it's like, as a trauma coach, I want to emphasize how important that is within dating. Like, there's the common saying is you can't love anyone else before you love yourself. The same goes with trust. It starts with you. I mean, I don't, there are many things I disagree with in that statement of, you can't love anyone without loving yourself. That's not necessarily true. It's just a common saying, but it does start with you. So
Yeah,
getting this level of trust and intimacy within yourself aids and helps garner the ability to do that with someone else.
well, and the thing I wanted to say on pleasure, especially when it comes to experiencing pleasure physically, intimately, sexually, right? And especially through touch, is before you're really getting into exploring sexually with somebody else, like explore with yourself. Learn what feels pleasurable. And that's the same concept that goes into dating from pleasure. You're learning what you enjoy. You're taking away from what society has told you you should and can and can't and shouldn't have in a relationship and exploring, what am I curious about? What brings me pleasure? So, like, in the extent of your body, like, don't just touch your genital regions or your known erogenous zones, like your genitals, your breasts, uh, ears, butt is another really common one. Like, explore your whole body. Your whole body is a
Mm-hmm.
pleasure vessel. You
Mm-hmm.
have nerve endings over your entire body. Wherever you can feel pain in your body, you can
You
also
can
feel
feel
immense
pleasure.
pleasure. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And like, who
Definitely.
knows? Maybe you really find you enjoy the sensation of like lightly dragging nails over your calf or running your hands like firmly through your hair and like giving it a grab and a tug.
Mm-hmm.
The point is, you're exploring what your points of pleasure are,
Mm-hmm.
because when you're familiar with that, you can actually communicate that to another person. If your partner goes to massage your calves and they immediately like dive in with deep massage and you're like, "Oh no, like my calves need
Gentle
lighter
play.
massage
Yeah.
first
Yeah.
and then you can move deeper." You need to be able to communicate that. If your partner
Yeah.
is not willing to listen, that is a whole different conversation to have.
Yes. Yeah. It's kind of like there's foreplay to foreplay.
Yeah.
And I was also thinking, like it doesn't only have to be touch related. It could be sounds, like what
Hmm.
things you want to hear spoken to you in those
Oh, yes.
moments, as well as like, do you want them to blow on you? Do you want to have a fan going? Do you have a candle, aromatherapy? Do you want to have water around? Like, there's so much to explore in that space outside of just penetration.
Oh, yes, definitely.
Mm-hmm.
And that is definitely another call. We will do it another point because there's so many things to
Definitely.
dive into around finding pleasure in your body, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, but you can do this with so many different aspects of your life. You can take this idea of the list and using it for a partner to using it for like your sexual pleasure, right? You
Mm-hmm.
can apply it to other areas as well. And that's to me like the idea of dating on its own can be sort of its own really beautiful awakening experience to
Mm-hmm.
you getting to learn how to be in pleasure with yourself,
Yes.
right? Like if you're hitting the stagnation or muckiness or just frustration of dating in the world because you're not getting what you're wanting or needing, it's not fulfilling, then like take a look at that. Take a look at where you can take a step back for you so it can be something fun, fulfilling, pleasurable.
Mm-hmm. And it doesn't really have a time limit on how long you need to take to find that.
No, not
It's
at
not
all.
like you sit down and you do it and you start your list and you start thinking about it and you only come up with three in like 4 hours. It's not about how long you sit down with it. It's just a matter of sitting down and doing it. There is no, it's the journey, not the destination.
Hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And again, the more you can release expectation, the better, in my opinion.
Oh,
And that is
definitely.
that is almost always my recommendation for dating, for Like even going and having a new experience. So I personally attend a sex and swingers club regularly, and new
Sounds
people coming
fun.
into that space, they'll enter with all sorts of anxiety and nervousness about the space.
Oh, yeah.
And I like they'll be like, "Well, how are you so comfortable here?" And I'm like, "Because I just let whatever the experience is be that experience."
Hmm.
Like I don't have to go into that space to have sex. Like I can go in
Yeah.
there and I can just dance. I can go soak in a hot tub. I can have a cool conversation, and it
Hmm.
doesn't have to be anything else. I just get to
Hmm.
enjoy what that was in those moments and what I got to experience out of that.
Yeah. And also, with starting new things and stuff, there is that level of anxiety and nervousness. And
Hmm.
it's not like you just enter into something new and you're like, oh, I've let it go. It doesn't bother me. Like, it'll take a couple of tries, and that
Hmm.
letting go process will take time. I mean, I didn't enter into anything that I have done in life without a level of anxiety the first few times that I did it. But then practice and reassurance and consistency, it became easier. And over time, I was able to slowly let that anxiety go so that I could allow that release, so that I could sit within that pleasure space.
Hmm. Well, and I think there's value in that, right? Because there can't any new experience. There can
Hmm.
be that anxiety edge of the unknown.
Hmm.
Um, and it's kind of like shadow work, right? That's what keeps
Yeah.
popping to mind. Like there's a certain shadow work practice where, um, let's say you don't like you get really triggered whenever somebody calls you a liar. Like being a liar is like the bane of your existence, and
Hmm.
it's a thing that like you would never want anyone else to call you,
Yeah.
right? And this can go for any identity.
Oh,
But
of course. Yeah.
the thing you can do is you help acclimate yourself
Hmm.
to being called a liar. And you kind of like you say out loud, I'm a liar. You allow yourself to connect with any memories that you have of being called a liar in the past, or where you've called somebody a liar in the past. And then you sit with noticing what the sensations are, and then after sitting with it for a minute or so, you bounce around and you shake it off.
Hmm.
Then you calm yourself, you come back to center, you say it again. But through the repetition, you realize, like, even in being called this thing, having this experience, you can be safe, right? It's not going
Hmm.
to kill you. It's not a life or death situation in going into that unknown or this thing that seemed so scary.
Hmm.
And you kind of you you work with your nervous system,
Yes.
so when you do experience it, it's not creating as big of an impact. And so that can help even in that idea of like, if you feel really nervous going on first dates, go take yourself on dates,
I love that. Yes.
right?
Yes.
Like that is where creating those spaces. Also, if the person no shows, I will tell you I had my fair share of people who just
Didn't show.
no showed for a date.
Hmm.
Then it doesn't really matter. Like they're the ones who are getting to miss out, or they had some emergency come up and didn't think to contact you,
Hmm.
whatever it may be. It doesn't matter the reason. You can still find pleasure and enjoyment in that
Yes.
experience.
Because you weren't in absolute need for that person to be there. For this is a first date scenario,
Hmm.
and you have gotten to a space of comfort in eating by yourself alone in public, taking yourself out mini golfing or whatever dates you want to go on. You have gotten to a place of comfort doing that by yourself, so it's just more pleasurable to have someone come along. not the
Mm-hmm.
absence of pleasure when they don't show it all.
No, no,
Mm-hmm.
I recently had a trip down to San Francisco where a guy paid for my trip to go down there. Um, and I met up with him. I was supposed to stay at his place, and we went out to dinner. About halfway through dinner, he had a complete panic attack because he'd had things come up with work, and now he needed to focus on work projects for the whole weekend. And I was down specifically to visit him. And I've told him in the past that I wasn't really interested in going down to just like hang out in an apartment by myself or an Airbnb, whatever it was. Well, that's he stressed himself out real bad and needed to go take care of that. He ended up purchasing me an Airbnb, and like yes, I was disappointed because I'd gone down there. I'd taken this time to go spend with him. At the same time, like I didn't sit around and mope the next day. I decided, hey, there were some things I really wanted to explore in this space. And I went and had a phenomenal day of like sightseeing and exploring around San Francisco. And it was a great experience. I also randomly ran into a guy on the beach who I'd met in Eugene, Oregon 2 years before. And that was another instance where I'd had a guy invite me on a date and the guy no showed. And that time in Eugene, like this guy and his friend came up to me and we all went dancing for a couple hours. So I was like, well, I'm here and there's big events going on. Why not have an experience, have an adventure?
Yes, I love that. And I completely agree. And I travel a lot, and I have had so many friends tell me that they don't travel alone, but they want to travel and they're so envious of me traveling. And so there's so much that you could potentially miss out on because you're not willing to do it alone.
Hmm.
And that pleasure space that you can get to in dating yourself, it could be that trip to Tahiti that you've always wanted to go to, or you've always wanted to go to Paris and have a romantic outing, but you've never been in a relationship long enough to go. You've been in a relationship with yourself your whole life. Go with yourself.
Hmm. Yeah.
So I completely agree with you. And you'll never know what you might stumble upon some guy you met in Eugene, Oregon, at the top of the Eiffel Tower. You never know.
Yeah. No, that's you never know when you're going to meet that
Mm-hmm.
person. So that's one of the ideas is that people can get really caught up on like I can only meet people to date through certain avenues,
Mm-hmm.
right? I can only meet them on Tinder or I had a conversation with a Uber driver actually when I was in San Francisco and he was like, "Well, the only way I can find people to date is if I go out to clubs and drink." He's like, "But I don't drink." And I was like, "Well, you can still go out to clubs." And he's like, "Oh, no, 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 I can't do that. I get too nervous. I would need to drink." And I was like, "Well, like, do you see other avenues for you being able to go out?" And he's like, "No, the girls at the clubs only also like the drunk guys because they have confidence." And I was like, it was interesting because I got to hear all those narratives and stories he was telling himself that limited him.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he could have one of his like Uber rides be that person, right? Or
Yeah.
give him some valuable link of an experience that leads to him meeting that person.
Yeah.
But he was so shut down that he could only meet women to date in a club and if he drank.
Yeah.
So recognizing your narratives that are
Mm-hmm.
keeping you stuck, like opening the perspective that like you could meet your potential soulmate, life partner, whatever it is for you, anywhere at any
Mm-hmm.
point in time.
Mm-hmm. They're called meet cutes, and they're not only in the movies. I completely agree. Unfortunately, I do have to hop off and get to fixing my phone issues.
Yes. All right. Well, we will not be back next week.
Oh,
There's
right.
some scheduling conflicts, but we will be back the next week. I believe it's May 11th, again at
Yes.
1 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. It's a Thursday. And oh, I completely just spaced what the topic for
I was
next
about
week
to
is.
ask.
Next week is trauma triggers.
Trauma trigger. Well, week after next, trauma
Or
triggers.
yes, week after next. Thank you for the correction.
Yes. All right. I will
All
see
right.
you guys all Thursday, May 11th at 1 p.m. PST to talk about trauma triggers. And as always, if you guys have any questions for us or if you want to speak with us privately, our information will be in the link below.
Yes,
Correct?
and yeah, and there's links all over the place for being able to contact us if you need support around dating, around creating pleasurable relationships, around being in your pleasure. Then
Mm-hmm.
please reach out to either of us. That's we both have expertise and a lot of experience with how to create those spaces for yourself.
Yes. And I will see you
All right.
all in 2 weeks.
All right. Have a good one.
Thank you for having
Bye.
me. Bye.